don't look for a style, just paint all the time and draw all the time. And you will eventually become, your work will become you. It's like a signature. You don't think about how my, what do I want my signature to look like, um, in your handwriting. It just happens because you practice it and do it.
Welcome to the BoldBrush Show, where we believe that fortune favors the bold. Brush. My name is Laura Engelbert, and I'm your host. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we are a podcast that covers art marketing techniques and all sorts of business tips, specifically to help artists learn to better sell their work. We interview artists at all stages of their careers, as well as others who are in careers tied to the art world in order to hear their advice and insights. To start off the new season, we sat down with Jeff Legg, an accomplished artist whose journey began with an innate passion for art, nurtured by an inspirational mentor who recognized his exceptional talent from a young age. After mastering classical techniques through rigorous training at Atelier Lack in Minneapolis and the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, Jeff demonstrated a remarkable entrepreneurial spirit by successfully running a bicycle business before courageously pursuing his true calling as a fine artist. His paintings are characterized by a profound symbolic depth, metaphysical beauty, and an extraordinary ability to capture mystery and emotion through luminous, transparently layered techniques that set him apart from his contemporaries. He advocates for working from memory and imagination, encouraging artists to break free from rigid techniques and develop a unique voice by consistently creating, with his mantra being to just paint and trust that your individual style will naturally emerge. He also stresses the importance of pursuing art that one loves, rather than trying to create something purely original or market-driven. Finally, Jeff tells us about his upcoming solo exhibition at the Spiva Center for the Arts, showcasing his remarkable artistic evolution through a stunning collection of paintings that represent the pinnacle of his creative journey. Welcome, Jeff, to the BoldBrush Show. How are you today?
Hi, Laura. I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you because I absolutely love your work. Your work has this sort of symbolic, metaphysical beauty that I think I don't see very often, especially with still lives. I feel like still lives, when they have a soul and they have a mood to it, like your work does, it is such a treasure for me because your eye just can't stop looking at the work and all of the beautiful details and how it's composed. So I'm really excited to talk to you about your work and how your process is. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
This is
of course.
going to be fun.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And of course, I'm very curious also to hear about when you started to follow the path of the artist because I've had people on the podcast who maybe they started really late, maybe in like their 40s, 50s, some people who started as early as they could hold a crayon. So what was that like for you? When did you first begin to follow the path of the arts?
Well, actually, since I was like 5 years old, I was so tuned into being an artist. I know that sounds crazy, but yeah, at a very young age, I kind of just knew that that's what I was. So, and then I was always just sketching and, having fun with ideas when I was a kid, sketching people and war scenes and, all sorts of things. But yeah, as I got older, I probably the turning point for me was that I had the good fortune of having a friend of my parents when I was in junior high, like seventh grade, I think. Uh, they had a friend that knew an artist in town that it was actually a college art professor, and he took students into his studio like private lessons, and I kind of got interviewed by him, and that was the beginning of like a 4-year mentorship through my junior high and high school years, and it was just a pivotal time for me. I was eager to learn and he was a beautiful, amazing teacher, so enthusiastic about art, and all the students loved him. And he just really took me under his wing, and uh, I just soaked it all up. And unfortunately, he died at a pretty young age before he actually saw me have a career in art. But I truly owe him 95% of what I know as an artist. Uh, so yeah, so I felt like doing art is almost like a calling for me. Uh, I don't think I could do anything else. It's something that just really feeds the soul. And if I don't create, or doesn't even really have to be painting necessarily, I could just anything, working with my hands, uh, it fills that need. It's almost like food, the need to create. So
Yeah, it's food for the soul.
food for the soul, yes.
And then after, you studied with this wonderful professor, um, when was the moment where you said, okay, I want to study with more people? Or how was that, I guess, early art student life? What was it like for you?
Well, what happened, I went through that 4 years with my mentor, learned so much, and went to art school right after high school. I attended the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. I was living in Missouri at the time, so but I spent my early childhood in Minnesota, and my sister lived in Minneapolis, and uh, my mentor wanted me to go to New York to the Art Students League at that time, but you know, I didn't want to go somewhere where I didn't know anybody, so I chose Minneapolis because my sister was there, and I was familiar with that town a bit. And so I attended the College of Art and Design, and found out pretty quickly they weren't really teaching what I needed to know or wanted to know. I had a couple of good teachers, but that was a time when art schools were just very touchy-feely and kind of avant-garde, and whatever feels good, do it sort of thing. And I wanted more of the classical atelier experience, and which I didn't even really know about existed at that time. But I bumped into a young man in the museum there. It was near my college, the art museum, and he was sketching a sculpture, and it was really a nice sketch. And I'd never seen him before. I said, I just started talking to him. I asked him where he, does he go to school here or whatever? And he said, no, he goes to Atelier Lack. And I go, well, what's that? And found out, what the Atelier system existed. And I was just like a radar. I was like, yes, that's what I'm looking for. And so he introduced me to Richard Lack, the man that started the Atelier. And basically kind of got interviewed. He looked at my sketches and drawings and things. And there was a waiting list to get in, but I was fortunate he liked what I did, or at that point, decided that he would let me in to the school, kind of put me up, push me forward in the line. And so, yeah, I was very fortunate to get in to that school, and was sort of a shorter stint. I didn't go through the whole program. That's a whole nother conversation, really. But anyway, after I left there, I learned a lot there. I learned some very important classical techniques, and I really learned what's possible. There were some amazing teachers and students doing just beautiful work. And it was an eye opener. And I learned how, although I knew drawing was really important, and my mentor really stressed the need to know how to draw, uh, they took it to another level of accuracy, to learn to see accurately and draw accurately. And so that was a big takeaway for me. But then, after leaving art school, I went home to Missouri, and didn't want to move back in with my mom and dad. I was 19, and so they don't teach you how to make a living in art. Most of the art schools, they don't have classes on how do you make a living as an artist. So although that was my heart's desire, was to be an artist, I had no clue how to start monetizing my work. And actually I wasn't good enough at that point to really start selling. But so long story short, I started a business. I was really into cycling at the time, bicycling, and did a lot of bike touring, a little bit of racing. And I started a business. I started with $400 in my pocket. I started a bicycle shop. And it was meant to just kind of get me by for a year or two until I kind of figured out how to how to be an artist, or how to make a living as an artist. And a couple years go by, and the bicycle shop actually started to grow and make me decent money for my age at that time. And then one thing leads to another. I met my wife, we got married, we started having kids. I'm still doing the bike shop, needed to make money to sustain the family. And so that ended up being like a 10 or 11 year business. And it actually grew into the largest bicycle shop in that area. And I had 2 stores at one time and employees. And I sold, fitness equipment and to the local hospitals, and got involved in all kinds of cycling events and things. But, it was kind of like I turned 30, and I thought to myself, wow, I'm not doing art. That was not my plan, to have a bicycle shop. I liked retail, liked owning a shop, but retail is really difficult, and I kind of burned out, and I truly wanted to pursue art, and ended up deciding I was just going to sell the business and jump feet first into painting. I hadn't really even done oil painting to speak of. Let me back up for a second, though. Before I decided to sell the business, I took a road trip to California in my 1987 Land Cruiser, which I bought new at that time, and stopped at. I painted along the way, and I stopped at galleries along the way to see what the market, or what the gallery world was like. And I went into these galleries, and I looked at the work, and I saw the prices and the quality of the work, and I just thought, I could do that. That's not a big deal. And if they're making it as an artist, surely I can do it. So that was kind of an eye-opener experience too, just to be able to see what you needed to be able to produce to get into the gallery circuit. So I sold the business and started painting, and but I will say it took a while to really, for one thing, to learn, to master the craft. It took years actually, but they say 10,000 hours you need to really master anything. But eventually it all came together. I got my first gallery, and started selling some work. And, I mean, it wasn't gangbusters. I still, we still lived sort of a very frugal lifestyle, and sometimes had to rely on our credit cards to get by, but just kept pressing on and trying to learn. And then there were some doors that opened, with shows and other galleries and things, which definitely helped. So I'm talking a lot. You can jump in there.
No, I think it's really fascinating because it's and I think a lot of us go through that, which is after, if some of us have studied in atelier, right? I think that's actually one of the hardest transitional moments for an artist is finishing art school, and it's the oh no, now what? And it could be oh no or oh yes, depending, because it is one of those time periods where it's like, okay, I probably need a day job, or I probably need something to help me support myself. And of course, you had your family, so that's even more pressure. But I think it's amazing that your bike shop lasted for so long and it was so productive and it was so big. Um, but it's also that, I also really relate to that side feeling of like, but I'm an artist and I haven't been doing the thing that I've set out to do and the thing that I've always loved. And it's fascinating to also see you took that chance. You said, you know what? I'm inspired. I see some people painting something that I feel like I could also do or do better, of course. And then you just pursue that. And it's that transition after art school that I think personally can be really, really challenging for a lot of people. Um, but I like that, you went for it. You still had, of course, this bike shop that kind of happened and then helped you realize, I've strayed a little bit from where I want to go. Even though it was productive, it was helpful, and it was a great support.
Right. Yeah, I have to give my dad a lot of credit. He was very much an entrepreneur
Mm.
all his life, and he always encouraged me to make my own job. He said that's really the only way to um, find fulfillment and also really make a decent living. So he gave me the risk-taking genetics, I guess, to do that. Just I had little kids at the time, so it was a pretty big decision to go full time without any track record at all. But I will say that I was pretty confident that I could produce the work. It was the marketing of the work that was probably the most difficult part. But having the experience in the retail business, even though it was a bicycle shop, not art, it taught me a lot just about, being disciplined and marketing and bookkeeping and, uh, all the nuts and bolts and, work moving parts of running a business. So it was definitely an advantage to having gone through that. Um, and I really truly think if I had started trying to be an artist and selling my work in my early 20s, let's say, that I probably would have failed and maybe not be an artist today, uh, perhaps out of discouragement. So gaining the confidence through owning a business and running a business and some maturity, I was 30 years old when I decided to pull the trigger on painting full time. And so, yeah, it was still not easy at all. Lots of hours painting, lots of hours painting, and trying to master the craft, and always having a mindset of 100%, wanting to do my best work, not compromising, not not thinking about quantity, but always thinking about quality. And and being true to myself, and truth, seeking truth and beauty was always my goal. And trying to communicate what I saw as beautiful, I suppose, was just really key for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned a couple things there that I think, they're worth noting, which is that, of course, it's awesome that you had this, like you said, you had this bike business, and that gave you so much experience in terms of, having a business, which I think a lot of people, especially when they're young, they want to be artists. They they don't see the reality of having a business, having to file your taxes, having to, form your LLC, or making sure that you have your bookkeeping up to date. I think those are all things that once someone decides I'm going to be a full-time artist, that's like the one thing that they don't really consider. So I think you having, your father's spirit of entrepreneurship, and also having had your own bike shop, you already had that discipline and independence to be able to pull off the more mundane but important side of being an artist, which is the business side. Of course, like you said, marketing for art is very different from marketing for bikes or marketing for other objects that are, not as unique as paintings. I feel like paintings, there's only one, unless it's prints, and then someone takes it, versus, having 10 of the same bike. It's a very different thing to sell.
I,
And then of course, yeah, and then of course there's that complex time period that I think we all go through as artists, once we're done with art school and we decide, okay, this is it, I'm going to do this. That building of your process around what you see as your vision as an artist, I think that part can also be so challenging. And again, when you're a young person, it's like, oh, I want to get that done now and I just want to sell. And I think it's okay to slow down and to take your time building that process, especially if you do have some sort of economic support on the side, whether it's a side job or saved up money. So actually, I did want to ask you a bit about how your process evolved over time, from like when you first began to now.
yeah, just before we go there, I wanted to just say that this all from my career, just it all started, like um, years and years before the internet and digital photography and social media. So it was all kind of would be considered old school, uh, methods at that time. And I truly, although there's so many advantages right now to getting your work out in front of people with social media and things like that, it's also creates this feeling that everybody out there is an artist, So in a sense, the competition is it's not really competition, but it's just a different world from when I started. So uh, I think a lot of the same principles would apply, but I would find it very, very challenging in the world that we live in now, uh, to do it the way I did it. That I'm not sure I'm articulating this very well, but uh, uh, there's just, you go on Instagram and, there's 10,000 artists, that are posting work. Well, that didn't exist, when I was starting out. So now just there's this appearance that everybody is an artist, they're not all equally doing the same thing or equal quality or anything, but that I think that really does play into the strategy that you would use today. Um, uh, that, again, that's probably a whole nother conversation. So we can move on to
Oh, well, actually, I
strategy.
will I will actually note something on that because I agree. I feel like today it's very easy to get lost a little bit in the ocean of people in Instagram, which is, I think, in terms of strategy, since you did mention, that it does require a shift in strategy, which I agree. I think at that point, the strategy then becomes a lot more about networking, talking,
Yeah.
like putting yourself out there, going to exhibitions and meeting other artists, and not just staying online, which I know is tempting, especially for the younger artists today, to not come out of the studio. But
Right.
the art world, despite the times being a little different, more technological and all of these things, there's still forever going to be an emphasis in one-on-one contact in person. That's
Definitely. That's
inevitable. Yeah.
a very good point. I really, art, any business, but art in particular, it's very relationship driven,
Hmm.
and making those relationships personal and in person, is a really key thing. Uh, like one piece of advice that I would give, and the galleries might not like me saying this, but when I approached the gallery, I didn't mail them my portfolio, or, at that time there wasn't digital, so I would have had to physically mail my portfolio to them, but uh, or make an appointment even. I just walked in cold, and had my portfolio under my arm, and hopefully I would catch them at a time when they could talk. Uh, but a lot of times you hear the advice, oh, you need to make an appointment, and send your images digitally or your portfolio at that time physically. But I always felt that if you did that, you would end up being on the bottom of a huge pile of portfolios, and maybe never get looked at, or so I wanted to do that in-person thing where I just walked in the door and said hello and shook their hand and looked them in the eye, and hopefully they would find out I was a serious artist, and that worked for me. I'm not saying that would work for everyone, but yeah, that personal contact was really
Yeah.
important.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, and actually I think these days galleries, I mean, I know no galleries appreciate, someone just walking in with their portfolio, because even today they don't like that. But I think having that point of contact in person is definitely important. And then maybe, I guess today it's a little easier, because if someone does say like, oh yeah, I love your gallery. Oh, I'm also an artist. And then there's this benefit of like, oh, well, can I see your work? So you can pull up your website on your phone, or you can pull up your Instagram on your phone. And that's a little easier than carrying around a whole portfolio.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I think it's a little
But
different, but
yeah,
it's
and
still that
I
point of
would say,
contact.
yeah, and I would say you've got to be really sensitive to if you walk into a gallery cold,
Mhm.
you don't want to interrupt them if they're in the middle of talking to a customer. You always want to be sensitive to their time, and just let it flow naturally. If the door opens to talk, it's fine. If it doesn't, then come back, at a different time. But
Mhm.
anyway, so yeah, they definitely, galleries, from my experience, they don't like that. But if you do it in a way that's where you're just polite, and not interruptive to them, then I think they're open to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
But yeah, that's
so
the complexity of personal relationships for sure. That social aspect.
for sure, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, and then in terms of your process, right? Because I find artistic process to be so fascinating. Because of course, last time we spoke, you showed me your incredible studio, which of course, and if someone's watching the video, I will be inputting a video that you actually posted on your Instagram of your studio, because I think it is any artist's dream studio, to be honest. You have all these gorgeous like pieces, right? You have, of course, your paintings, you have a cozy couch, you have your fireplace, but then you also have all of these beautiful still life objects that, oh
yeah,
my gosh, how many easels do you have? I think you have like three. Ooh.
yeah. I remember three
Yeah.
or four.
Yeah. So of course I wanted to ask you a bit about, how your process evolved over time. Like, kind of work in the same way that you began, or do you maybe start out with thumbnail sketches? Do you find an object and fall in love with it, or do you have a vision? How does it all develop?
Yeah, it really could be any of those things. I think usually as far as the still life work, it's inspired by an object. So I'll have a particular object that I like the form or the shape, the form or the color or the texture, the patina or whatever. And so then I'll be thinking about, what kind of a composition could I use that in? And so I'll start with just little thumbnail sketches, very abstract, not even getting into any detail, just sort of positioning of shapes. And they're just tiny, like 2 by 2 inches maybe. And I'll work up some ideas for compositions. The number one thing is your idea. What are you trying to convey in this painting? And it could be very simple, like you love the blue color, in this painting here, I just love that blue. So I wanted to build a painting around that color. It could be, anything from how the light moves through the painting, or, the juxtaposing shapes, large and small, or it could be anything. But yeah, start with a thumbnail, typically. But then again, sometimes I just go straight to the setup and I'll put that object, whatever it is, up on my table and light it and start adding other elements and just go from there. So I just try to stay, I don't want to be locked into a really rigid procedure. So that way, if the creative inspiration hits me, I can just go right to a painting, or I can do more of a planned thing where I do some sketches. But I think more times than not, I just don't wait for inspiration. I put something up there, that I'm attracted to, and I just start painting. I don't do any pre-sketching on the canvas. I just go directly to paint, which is not what they teach you at the atelier, but that's what I do. I always felt like if I drew the composition on the canvas ahead of time, I mean, that's okay, but I'm going to paint over that anyway. I can make all those drawing adjustments with paint. So it's sort of a redundancy, or in a way, kind of a waste of time for me to spend a lot of time drawing on the canvas just to paint over that. And then it kind of feels like paint by number if I'm trying to follow my drawing that closely. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I was actually gonna mention how, and again, if anyone listening has gone to an atelier, they understand that like the transitional phase, which I mentioned earlier, after the atelier is so much about finding your process, but then also kind of unlearning a little bit, kind of unlearning all the little things that could be holding you back from yourself or from what your soul might be calling to, right? So like it's a little bit of rule breaking, um in some ways, right? Maybe someone does like the paint by numbers sort of approach, but then they shift something else in their process. Or maybe someone is like you, where okay, I built my base, I know how to draw, I know how to do the thing. Now it's just okay, I'm going to play with values, or I'm going to play with color and value, or I'm just going to focus on monochromatic. Like there are so many different roads, right? All these different roads that lead to Rome. And it's good to remember that the atelier system is fantastic, but it could be a crutch if you're not allowing yourself to step outside of it, you know?
Yeah, and I tend to think that if you follow the proper, quote, the proper techniques and methods, that you could end up just looking, producing really beautiful, finely crafted paintings that looks like everybody else's beautiful and finely crafted paintings.
Mhm.
So I guess I fly by the seat of my pants a little bit more, and that comes from my mentor, who was very into inspiration and just letting things flow. And one philosophy he taught me, which I think is really uh, important for me at least, is that painting is not just a visual experience. It involves all of our senses in a way that the things that are coming into us visually, audibly, um, the smells, the sounds, the crunch of the leaves under our feet, wherever we are, it's all one experience that we're having. And that experience of all of our senses plays a part in what comes out of us in our artwork. So it's not just a static visual experience where you look at something and you copy it. Uh, so I guess, we're getting into like uh, the self-expression part of painting, how much of it is craft and, observation, and how much of it is what's we're feeling, the emotional element, or how we see whatever we're looking at. And there's sort of a fine line. I mean, that can go either direction. I mean, it could turn your work very abstract, or it could turn it super hyper realism. But uh, I get the question oftentimes from younger artists, how do you develop a style that's recognizable? And the answer to that, and I had that question early on. The answer is actually just don't look for a style. Just paint all the time and draw all the time, and you will eventually become your work will become you. It's like a signature. You don't think about what do I want my signature to look like, um, in your handwriting. It just happens because you practice it and do it. So that's how I look at it. That um, whatever our worldview is, and our love for the work and the world we live in, uh, plays a really significant part in who you become as an artist, and uh, that will express itself over time the more you practice the craft. Um, so yeah, don't look for a style. I tried looking for a style and I didn't find it. It only happened when I just kept painting all the time. And it I would say it took 6 or 7 years of painting before I really started having any kind of thing that looked like my work. And now I don't even think about it. People say they can recognize my work across a room. I mean, that's really the artists that you remember are those artists, because there's something about it that just is their signature. And most of the time, I think those artists didn't like go looking for that. It just happens. So, yeah, that's a really interesting subject.
It is absolutely, because uh there's a benefit to, you know, the ateliers, of course, the foundational stuff, the getting the discipline, because of course at an atelier you're painting 8 to 12 hours a day, every day. Um, but then of course, uh, once you're out, like I said, that transitional phase, that finding yourself is interesting, because it's like you said, it's you find yourself and you stop looking, right? You just
Right.
kind of just do the thing, find what you're led to, and then it just happens. It just appears, it manifests on its own. So I also used to ask that to the artists I've had on the podcast, like, how do you find your artistic voice? And everyone has said basically the same as you, which is it happens. Like, it's not something you can force. It's not something you can plan. It's just about allowing yourself to, you know, go towards the things that you most love. And again, just to bring back, social media, I think that's actually one of the difficulties of being an artist today is the extreme amount of influence that we have because of social media, right? Like, it's so easy to get lost in looking at other people's beautiful work and to allow that to influence you, when I think it's kind of important to put your phone away or like stay away, maybe grab like an old book with like the old masters if that's what you love, or like a specific artist that you love, and just like stay off the internet and let yourself exist in the moment with
Yeah. Yeah.
these the original influences maybe that we may have seen without the internet, right?
It's really life experience. I mean, that's what art is you have to have things coming into you to produce, have something come out of you. And like you say, being overly influenced by images you see on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, I would just highly recommend not looking at so much stuff. I mean, you should look at the really good stuff and aspire, to be on that level. But be very selective and don't try to copy anybody. Like, I mean, you can copy other artists to learn, but eventually you don't want to be known as the artist that looks like so and so. But what I would recommend is spending time in nature, outdoors, because everything is in nature, all the beauty, and inspiration is there. And looking at other artists, old masters and such is good, but when I'm feeling kind of dried up, like I don't have anything inspiring me, I go outside, I go on a hike, I spend some time out in nature and observing, and that does the trick, sure. So.
Yeah, I totally agree.
If you've been enjoying the podcast and also want to be able to ask our guests live questions, then you might want to join our monthly BoldBrush Live webinars, where our guest artists discuss marketing tips, share inspiring stories, and answer your burning questions in real time. Whether you're a seasoned painter or just starting your creative journey, this is your chance to connect, learn, and spark new ideas. And whether you're stuck on a canvas or building your creative business, this is where breakthroughs happen. Don't miss out. Ignite your passion and transform your art practice by joining us. Our next BoldBrush Live webinar is coming up on July 17th with our special guest, Noah Buchanan. You can find the sign-up link in the show notes. At BoldBrush, we inspire artists to inspire the world, because creating art creates magic, and the world is currently in desperate need of magic. BoldBrush provides artists with free art marketing, creativity, and business ideas and information. This show is an example. We also offer written resources, articles, and a free monthly art contest open to all visual artists. We believe that fortune favors the bold brush. And if you believe that too, sign up completely free at boldbrushshow.com. That's BoldBrush show.com. The BoldBrush Show is sponsored by Faso. Now more than ever, it's crucial to have a website when you're an artist, especially if you want to be a professional in your career. Thankfully, with our special link, faso.com/podcast, you can make that come true and also get over 50% off your first year on your artist website. Yes, that's basically the price of 12 lattes in 1 year, which I think is a really great deal, considering that you get sleek and beautiful website templates that are also mobile friendly, e-commerce, print on demand in certain countries, as well as access to our marketing center that has our brand new art marketing calendar. And the art marketing calendar is something that you won't get with our competitor. The art marketing calendar gives you day-by-day, step-by-step guides on what you should be doing today, right now, in order to get your artwork out there and seen by the right eyes so that you can make more sales this year. So if you want to change your life and actually meet your sales goal this year, then start now by going to our special link,
faso.com/podcast. That's faso.com/podcast. Because as artists, of course, the original source is always nature, right? It's almost like we see all these beautiful paintings, of course, and all these beautiful things that humans have created over time. And all of them are derivative of nature, right? So going back to that source is, of course, one of the biggest things that will hopefully inspire people, especially people who love nature, which actually it makes me wonder a little bit more about who your influences have been in your work.
Well, I mean, you can't beat the old masters, Rembrandt, Michelangelo, Caravaggio, Ribera, Waterhouse. Bouguereau was a really big one in art school at the Atelier. I really love the Wyeths, all three of the Wyeths. Jamie in particular, because, well, I love Andrew's work too. Well, I love all three of them for different reasons, but I love Jamie because he's very fearless, and he'll do some really strange, quirky stuff. And we both share an interest in Nerdrum. I think Odd Nerdrum is a very amazing painter. And David LaBelle, I took a couple of workshops with David back in the early '90s. He was kind of the first still life artist that I really discovered, you know, and he was a big influence on me, I would say. Having gone to those workshops, I learned a lot. But and then my early training, you know, with my mentor, we did watercolor. So I was introduced to Charles Reed, who some of you may be familiar with, very loose watercolor figurative painter. And that was influential. And I think you might know this, that, you know, a lot of my work has transparent passages in them. And I think that love for transparency in oil comes from my experience in watercolor. Yeah, I mean, there's so many great artists in the world. It's hard to think of all of them, but I mean, the Impressionists too were, I don't paint really impressionistic. Well, I take that back. Outdoors, I tend to paint more impressionistically, you know, looser at least. I don't know if it's technically impressionism, but the Impressionists had an influence. You know, Van Gogh, Monet, the, you know, classic names that you know. But I think by and large, it's more the era of Rembrandt and Michelangelo and Pierre Chardin, and it was, you know, very drew me in. More the light and shadow school and dramatic lighting. So
Yes, yeah, and I can see it especially in the painting behind you of the blue object. It's really cool. It looks kind of like the earth because it looks like it's
yeah,
floating.
right. It's almost like it's a vessel, but within that vessel is like it's a portal. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I wanted this to have sort of a mystical feeling to it.
Oh, it definitely does. I can't stop looking at it. Like every so often I'm just looking at it. And I can definitely see, you know, those influences in your work. And funny enough, Lafelle is actually one of the very first painters I came across when I started buying oil painting books when I was trying to teach myself. There was one book written by one of his students with all of her notes from his class. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like Oil Painting Secrets from a Master
Yeah,
or
Linda
something like that.
Coutura.
Amazing book.
Yeah, that was the first one I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could totally relate. There's and of course the dramatic lighting, which of course I see in your work. It's very like Dutch Golden Age style, but also a little bit of Caravaggio in there. It's kind of hard to it's hard to not somehow be influenced by the past, because I think, of course, when you go to an atelier and you're becoming an artist, we're standing on the shoulders of all of these past artists. We're like continuing their legacy of all of these things that we've learned to do with our hands and with paint is just absolutely incredible. So I agree. It's really, it's kind of annoying when someone says, "Oh yeah, you know, your work is like so and so," and it's like, "Oh no."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's tough.
I purposely didn't study with David too much because I didn't want to become, you know, a carbon copy
Hmm.
of David. I mean, obviously people say they see the influence. I'm not ashamed to admit that, you know, you're influenced by somebody, someone, and he's a good influence. But at the same time, I've tried to let my early years of painting in watercolor and just let my own way, I have my own way of doing things. And, hopefully that sets me apart from that influence. And I think people see that, that I'm not just trying to copy another artist. So
Yeah.
trying my own self.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
actually, that's actually this is a good moment for me to ask you a little bit about do you have any recent aha moments in terms of technique?
uh, well, let's see. I wrote down some things that I think might help. Um, yeah, I guess probably the biggest thing was that realizing that you can't really copy color. I mean, color is very relative. It looks, one color looks different next to another color, next to another color. And the color is so relative. You could paint anything in any color, and it would, as long as the value relationships were good and correct, that the color doesn't matter. So I don't get real hung up on trying to reproduce an exact color. In fact, I will push colors where I want them to be. Um, I mean, after all, we're dealing with paint, and you can only do so much with paint. Sometimes you have to exaggerate things just to get across the emphasis of a certain color that you want to focus on. So, I put a lot more practice into value, relationships, because that's really the most important thing. Um, so that was a pretty big thing to realize. I didn't have to be, I'm not a camera, I'm not even trying to be a camera. I'm trying to paint something that looks, I want to paint whatever I'm painting to be more than what it is, to be more than what a camera would capture. Uh, so that means taking some liberties, which was a really good segue to one thing I've done for about the past 15 years or so, is I paint quite often. A lot of it's from imagination, or a combination of, what I'm looking at and my imagination. So I find a lot of freedom in doing work from memory or imagination. And I really, really recommend highly that people work from memory, more than they do. Uh, Working from your memory or your imagination, it's sort of the same thing. Uh, you are forced to, you're going to force yourself to find out what you really know, because what you really know is, should be able to come out as a memory or as your imagination. And the more you practice and exercise your imagination, I think the better artists will be. As a child, our imaginations are much more pliable, and I think we use it more often. And as we get older, we sort of, lose our childlike ability in that way. So I try to practice that. I've done a lot of paintings, still life, totally from made up, and you would never know it. And it shouldn't matter. I mean, really, in some ways, those paintings are maybe more truthful than trying to, exactly copy what I'm looking at, uh, because they're from me. They're not locked into just what I'm looking at. They're kind of an expression. Uh, then another thing, as far as technique, that was a discovery that has helped me a lot is I'm in love with surface texture. A painting isn't a painting unless it has beautiful surface texture. So that's just my opinion, but uh, I like to build up textures and patina and glazes, and uh, using regular oil paint, even if you add mediums that, to help speed the drying, it takes a day or several days to really be thoroughly dry, if not months. And you certainly can't really glaze a painting that's not thoroughly dry. So I discovered alkyd oils, which is a fast drying oil paint. And depending on the humidity level and the thickness of the paint, everything, it'll dry, anywhere from, it'll be pretty darn dry in 2 or 3 hours, or overnight for sure. 3 or 4 days, it's completely cured out. So that has helped me speed up my process a lot. Then the cool thing about alkyds too is they all dry at the same speed. They can be mixed into regular oils. You can start a painting with alkyd and end it with regular oils, or you can do the whole thing with alkyd. It's just a beautiful, for me, it's a beautiful balance, because I would say I would speed up my process by weeks by using alkyds, at least in the beginning stages, if not, the entire painting. These paintings are all alkyd. And don't misunderstand, it is an oil paint. It's just a fast drying oil paint. It's not acrylic. Acrylic dries too fast for me. And it doesn't have the same feel as oil paint. So anyway, yeah, using alkyd oils I know it's unconventional. There's not a lot of artists that really do that, but that's been a big thing for me. I can do a painting, average size, still life, do all the glazing, everything I want to do to make it, that surface quality, the texture and everything, let that dry, say, a week, and then it's dry enough to varnish, get it framed and send it off to a gallery. Whereas if I were using regular oils, I might have, that might be more like a 3-month process, if not longer. So,
Yeah. I mean, that's another one of those things where your personal process, of course, builds in part around, the materials you have, right? The limitations of those materials. Kind of like how you said, there are limitations with an oil paint of the colors we can achieve and how accurate they are, because color is so relative that of course values are the biggest thing, because sure, the spectrum of light is much bigger than the spectrum of values you can get with paint, but you can get a really good approximation visually. But color is a whole other beast that I don't think any kind of CAD red could ever actually achieve the red of certain objects in reality. So you just have to make do with what you got. And then I think it's awesome that the alkyd oils work like that too, because I think there's nothing more frustrating than when I don't know, like when I was a student, I would take some ivory black and then I would mix it with maybe a little bit of romber, or romber with a little bit of ivory black. And of course, that's going to make the paint look like very strangely opaque, and it always ends up drying visually a few values lighter, until you oil it out. So there's nothing
Yeah.
more frustrating than like the separate drying times of different pigments and how it can visually make it difficult to oil paint, because of course you don't want to use too much oil, because if you oil out too much, then suddenly your canvas doesn't take any more oil, and then you run into a bunch of other issues that if you can avoid them altogether, that's awesome. Because like you said, if you are an artist who's trying to get paintings done in time, in a timely manner, or you have a deadline, knowing things like, alkyd oils is very important, because then it's like, oh, I just saved myself weeks of, kind of fighting with my own paints, or making sure that I can actually complete things. So I think that's really great advice. I hadn't heard of those.
Yeah, the alkyds, they dry at this, they all the colors dry at the same speed, and they all dry matte.
Mm.
So they look the same together. You don't have that problem of sinking in.
Mhm.
Now, if you add a medium to the alkyd, which you can add an alkyd medium like this. A couple different types of medium I use, but then the paint will tend to dry with more of a shine to it. And you might have some variation of shine versus matte that all, of course, evens out when you varnish it. But interesting that you mentioned red. That's a color that you're right. You can't, it's very difficult to get a really vivid red like you see with your eye and and come up with a color that looks that vivid and in paint. And I discovered through glazing you can get closer to that. So you paint a red vase, more of like a orangey red or almost a pink, and it's lighter value than maybe the finished, what you want the finished value to be. But then you let that dry and you glaze it with, say, alizarin crimson or some other red, and that transparency of that glaze, it's like a stained glass window. The light bounces through it, and it looks completely different than if you had done it with opaque paint. It'll look very luminous and more intense. So that's another, yeah. Red is a color that's very difficult to achieve those sort of that kind of luminosity without glazing.
I agree. Yeah. And I think, of course, like you said, I think glazing in oil paints, or playing with transparencies, I think is so underrated. There's so much beauty and variety that you can get in oil paint just with transparencies. Like you don't have to paint everything opaque. It's okay to leave something somewhat transparent. And not
Yeah,
everything has to be perfectly finished, right? You also want to have that little bit of mystery in there. Like I think that's
yeah,
really important. Yeah.
yeah. Mystery is. I'm always striving for mystery. That's such a key thing for me. Um, see, I was going to say that, and I forgot what it was. But anyway, yeah, the mystery element. I love paintings that I look at them and I might see something in the painting and go, well, what the heck am I looking at? But there's something about that ambiguous form or shape that's just really intriguing, especially if it's, combined with something that is recognizable. So, and having really dark passages where you have to look into the shadow and try to figure out what it is back there, and feels very mysterious. And I love that. I don't think I do it very well, but that's one thing I really strive for in my work. And I'm still definitely learning how to do that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think painting is the gift that keeps on giving, because we're always still learning. I mean, even Michelangelo in his 80s was saying that he was still learning, because it's a medium that transcends, I think, the span of anyone's lifetime, which again is why, I feel like we're still picking up the work that the old masters left for us, and all past artists have left for us. We're still continuing their work, so to speak, which is very inspiring.
Yeah, and it's really amazing to think about that. I don't know if you've heard of fractals, but basically, basically what science knows is that any shape can exist in nature, in reality. It's infinite. I mean, the possibilities of combining shapes and making shapes, which is all what painting is all about, is infinite. And so anything we produce as artists today, even though maybe it has a resemblance to something in the past, it's still a different painting. There's an infinite number of combinations of ways to put things together. And that, I kind of feel like, uh, Captain Kirk, going into the universe and just infinite possibilities with painting. But yeah, mathematically, fractals is a mathematical equation that was discovered. And basically, if you zoom in on a fractal image, which is kind of an abstract image, you can zoom in infinitely and see different shapes forever and ever and ever with this mathematical equation. It's really an interesting thing. There's some documentaries out on that I would recommend. But yeah.
Yeah, I think also, to piggyback on that, I think that's the other interesting thing about humans as individuals as well. Because of course we each have a totally new experience and a totally new combination of all of these things, but at the same time, it's still technically all of these things that have already existed, that have happened to us, and we're just kind of not reinventing it, but we're remixing it, right? Which I think is why, like, I think that takes a lot of pressure off of, like, oh, how dare I paint a beautiful sunset on the beach? That's been done a million times. Like, who cares? It's not going to be done the way you did it, and it's not going to be done by your hand if you don't
Right.
do it, right? So I think there's too much pressure, especially in like the modern sort of art schools, that think everything has to be new and unique and never before seen. It's like, no, it doesn't.
Well,
There's nothing
the
new
truth
under the
is,
sun.
yeah, I mean, there really is nothing new. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, uh, yeah. So why even think that there might be?
Yeah.
But and one other thing I wanted to mention, that I get the question, uh, you know, uh, from students in particular, or people will make a comment, you're just so talented, and there's a conception that uh, artists walk into a room, they wave a magic wand, and a painting appears. That it's essentially just all talent, and there's no discipline or work. That's so far from the truth. Uh, in reality, talent is like here, and desire is way up here. So yeah, I mean, there is an element of talent, I think, that is very helpful, but unless you really, love to do it and have the desire to do it, that talent really doesn't mean a whole lot. And I knew guys in high school that were like just super talented, like way more talented than me, but they didn't become artists because they just didn't have the desire to do it. Um, So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, that I don't think at all that, you can have just a thimble full of talent and take that extremely far, um, through discipline and hard work and some training. Uh, yeah. Yeah, and I totally agree with you what you said, that, there's way too much emphasis put on originality, because I don't think there really is anything that's original. It's pretty much all been done. Uh, but So I have no problems with doing something that's been done, but just do it my way, or do it, do it better than what has been done in the past. I think it's really important to think about.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Because I think in part that's, by limiting the things that you can paint just to the things that have never existed, you've limited things to zero. You can't, there's nothing, right? But if you have that like desired, like, oh man, I really, really love painting horses, go paint horses. Like
Yeah.
it's okay. If it's what you love, it doesn't matter if it's quote unquote original. It'll just be your hand that makes it unique in its own way, but not the subject itself,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was Andrew Wyeth has a quote that your art is only as great as your love is. I really like that.
Yeah.
So, seek the things and do the things that you love. That's what's important.
Absolutely.
And I saw uh, the Prix de West is this past weekend. It's a big Western art show in Oklahoma City. I have a lot of artist friends in that. George Carlson is an artist I really admire. He's known for his sculpture, but more so now for his paintings. And I think he's one of the top painters in the country. And he had this beautiful painting of just trees, and I think there was a hawk, and just so simple. I mean, think a subject that's been done, millions of times, but he did it in his way, and it's just absolutely, you know, amazing. So yeah, you have to pursue the things that you really love. Uh, don't try to paint for the market. I've tried that, doesn't work. Uh, if you love it and you do it well, someone else will love it, and you'll probably have, you'll find your buyers that way by just staying true to your own vision, your own heart, and your love for your subject, whether it's portraits, landscape, or still life, or whatever. Um, I've been kind of stereotyped, I guess, as a still life artist, but really my early training was in portraiture and figurative stuff, and I'm in the process of kind of going back to doing more of that. So uh, I'm going back to what I love. I mean, I love still. I'm not saying I don't love still life, but that's not the only thing I can do or want to do. So I think you might have seen a painting I did of the prodigal son. The painting's called My Son, and it's two figures embracing. Kind of influenced by Odd Nerdrum, admittedly, but I love his work, and I'm learning from his work. Uh, but yeah, so I'm beginning to, whatever years I have left in this life, I want to do more portraits and figures, and I have a solo show coming up this year. Opens in August 22nd is the reception. So I got like 8 weeks. Um, but it's going to have a combination of work over, probably stretching as far back as maybe the mid 2000s up until current work. And the reason it has older pieces like that is I have had the good fortune of selling everything I do. And, you know, raising a family and everything, I needed to sell everything that I did. And I don't know, probably 10 years ago or 12 years ago, I decided I need to have a solo show, but I could never gather enough work together because I had to put it in the gallery and get it sold. So I just started slowly accumulating work. I do a piece and I go, okay, I really like this piece. I'm going to keep this, and then hopefully do a solo. with it in the future. So the work, I'm going to have probably 40 or 50 paintings in the show, and it's going to span, you know, maybe close to 15 or 20 years. So it's almost a retrospective, but it's not. It's going to have current work, a lot of current work. But it's going to have everything from figurative, still life, landscape, uh, divergent stuff, symbolic stuff. Anyway, I think it'll be interesting. And that's going to run. It's in my hometown of Joplin, Missouri. I was born just about an hour from where I live now, at a beautiful new art center called Spiva Center for the Arts, and it'll run from August 22nd through October 25th. If anybody wants to come out to see that. Anyway, I'm excited. It's the first solo show in 35 years, so kind of scary.
Awesome though. I wish I could go because it would be such a treat to see your work in person. I think obviously, you know, just seeing your work on your website, it's beautiful, it's breathtaking, but there's nothing better than seeing paintings in person. So I really wish I could go. And maybe one day I'll visit your studio because I think it's absolutely incredible. But yeah, and then actually if someone does want to see your work, what is your website?
It's just jefflegg.com.
Awesome.
So yeah, and then if you want to find out about the show, it's Spiva Center, or I think it's just spiva.org, SPIVA, Art Center, Art Center for the Arts, I think. You can Google that for the show, but I'll have that on my website too. I don't think it's on there yet, but yeah, I still have a lot of, I'm looking around here. I've got like 5 or 6 paintings to finish,
Oh my
and
goodness.
lots of framing to finish, and I've got to get my act together here, get that
Oh,
finished. I'm going to have a catalog for the show, and it's in conjunction with, I don't know if you've ever heard of Watercolor USA, but it's a big national watercolor show is in the same building. Actually, the reception is the same evening as my reception, so there's going to be a ton of people there. So, you know, anybody that wants to come, it's kind of a twofer. You get to see my show and also the watercolor show, which should be really good.
well, I don't envy the stress of having to prepare for the show, but at the same time, that is still such an amazing opportunity. And so it's I'm sure it'll be extremely fulfilling when you're out there with all of your work and seeing everyone. So I wish you the absolute best of luck finishing up because I know how stressful it can be just getting closer and closer to the deadline. So thank you so much, Jeff, for giving us some of your precious time for this interview.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, this was so
Enjoyed it.
great. Yeah.